Hey there. Welcome back for another deep dive, where we take all those fascinating articles and research you've sent our way and extract those pure golden nuggets of knowledge.
Yeah.
Today, we're tackling something you've been curious about.
Okay.
The intriguing world of how we think.
That's a good one.
Absolutely. And the jumping off point for this deep dive is an article from toolthinker.com.
Okay.
That really caught my eye.
All right.
It's all about current thinking versus framework thinking.
I like it.
Honestly, I think it's going to give us some serious aha moments today.
I think so too.
Ready to get those synapses firing.
Let's dive in.
Okay, so the article kicks off by talking about what they call current thinking.
Okay.
And it's more than just keeping up with the latest trends.
Right.
They're describing that spontaneous, almost instinctual way we make decisions based on our gut feelings and experiences. That little voice inside that says, yep, this feels right, let's go with it.
Right.
We all do this, right?
All the time.
Yeah.
It's our default mode.
Right.
Our brain's quick and efficient way of navigating the world.
Okay.
Think about it.
Yeah.
You don't need a complex equation to figure out if you want coffee or tea in the morning.
Right.
That's your current thinking at work. Drawing on your past preferences and making a snap judgment.
Makes total sense.
Yeah.
But here's where it gets interesting.
Okay.
The article also points out that this go with your gut approach isn't always the most reliable.
Right.
Especially when we're dealing with more complex situations.
Yeah.
In fact, it can lead to those classic facepalm moments where we think, oh, why did I do that?
Oh, yeah.
Like impulse buying that gadget you didn't need or saying something in a meeting that you instantly regret.
Yep.
Been there.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And those facepalm moments can be valuable learning experiences. They highlight the limitations of relying solely on our gut instincts.
I see.
What's fascinating is that there's actually a whole science behind these different modes of thinking. Psychologists often refer to them as System 1 and System 2.
Okay, tell me more about this System 1 and System 2 thing.
Okay, I'm intrigued.
System 1 is essentially what we've been calling current thinking.
Right.
It's fast, intuitive, and driven by emotions and past experiences.
Okay.
It's incredibly useful for quick reactions and navigating familiar situations.
Right.
But System 2 is slower, more deliberate, and analytical. It requires conscious effort and is better suited for complex problem solving and critical thinking.
Okay.
The catch is that our brains tend to default to System 1, even when a situation calls for a more thoughtful System 2 approach.
So it's like our brains are wired for efficiency, but not always for making the best decisions.
Right.
That makes me wonder,
how do we know when to switch gears and engage that more analytical System 2 thinking?
Right.
Is that where the framework thinking from the article comes in?
You got it.
Okay.
Framework thinking is all about having a structured approach to analyze information and solve problems.
Right.
Think of it like having a mental toolkit with specific tools for specific tasks.
Totally.
These tools are frameworks, established models, theories, or guidelines that provide a roadmap for our thinking.
Okay, I'm starting to see how this could be really helpful.
Yeah.
Instead of just winging it, you've got this proven approach to guide you. The article dives into some pretty compelling advantages of framework thinking.
Okay.
Things like structured analysis.
Yeah.
And increased efficiency.
Right.
What makes these frameworks so effective?
Well, one of the key benefits of frameworks is that they help us break down complex problems into manageable parts.
Right.
It's like facing a giant jigsaw puzzle, overwhelming at first, right?
Right.
But with a framework, you have a strategy for sorting those pieces, finding patterns, and gradually building a complete picture.
Right.
It helps us avoid feeling lost.
Yeah.
Or making decisions based on incomplete information.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Especially in our world, where we're constantly bombarded with information from all sides.
Right.
It's easy to feel overwhelmed and make hasty decisions.
Absolutely.
So a framework essentially gives us that much needed structure and clarity.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm also curious about the efficiency piece.
Okay.
How do frameworks actually save us time and energy?
Frameworks help us avoid reinventing the wheel.
Right.
Every time we face a challenge.
Okay.
They leverage the power of accumulated knowledge and best practices.
Right.
Imagine you're learning to play chess. Would you rather fumble around on your own
Okay.
Or study proven strategies and tactics used by grandmasters.
I definitely go for the Grandmaster playbook. So we're not just talking about organizing our thoughts.
Yes.
But tapping into a collective wisdom that's been honed over time.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty amazing when you think about it.
It is.
Yeah.
And that brings us to another powerful aspect of frameworks.
Okay.
They facilitate collaboration and communication.
All right.
When everyone involved in a project or decision is working within the same framework, it creates a shared language and understanding.
Gotcha.
It's like having a common set of blueprints for building something together.
So less room for miscommunication and those frustrating moments when everyone's on a different page.
Right.
That's a huge win in any team setting.
Yeah.
The article also mentions something called replicability as a key advantage.
Okay.
What exactly does that mean in the context of framework thinking?
Replicability is all about consistency and predictability.
Okay.
When a framework has proven successful in certain situations, it increases the likelihood of achieving similar positive outcomes when applied to similar challenges. Think of a chef who uses a recipe to bake a perfect cake. The recipe is a framework.
Right.
And its replicability means that anyone following it can achieve similar results.
Okay, that's a great analogy.
Yeah.
So it's not about guaranteeing success,
right,
but rather increasing our odds of making sound decisions and achieving the desired outcomes.
Exactly.
It's like having a reliable roadmap that guides us towards our goals.
Precisely.
Okay.
And, you mentioned your interest in listeners' field earlier.
Yeah.
There are actually some really interesting frameworks being used in that area right now.
Oh, really? Tell me more.
Well, for instance, there's a specific framework relevant to the listener's field.
Okay.
It's a really helpful tool for explain how the framework is used in the listener's field and helps people explain the benefits of using the framework.
Wow, that's really interesting.
Yeah, it is.
It's amazing how frameworks can be applied across so many different domains.
I know, right?
It really speaks to their versatility as thinking tools.
Yeah.
I do have one question, though.
Okay.
The article focuses on all the positives of frameworks. But doesn't using a rigid structure risk stifling creativity? Won't it make us less likely to think outside the box?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
And a common concern.
Right.
The key is understanding that frameworks are meant to enhance,
not
replace our natural creativity. Think of it this way.
Right.
Even the most brilliant jazz musicians start with a basic understanding of musical scales and chords.
Right.
Those provide a framework, but it's their improvisation and unique style that bring the music to life.
So the framework is like the foundation.
Exactly.
But it's up to us to build something interesting and innovative on top of it. We need both the structure and the freedom to explore.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Effective frameworks should provide guidelines and structure.
Right. But also allow for flexibility and adaptation.
I see.
Let me share a personal anecdote that might illustrate this point.
Right.
A few years back, I was working on a project that involved analyzing market trends for a new product launch.
Okay.
We were using the classic SWOT analysis framework, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats to assess the market landscape.
Ah, the good old SWOT analysis. A classic for a reason, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's a tried and true framework. But here's the thing. As we were going through the analysis, we realized that the traditional SWOT categories weren't fully capturing the nuances of this particular market. It was a rapidly evolving tech sector.
Right.
With a lot of disruptive potential.
Okay.
The standard SWOT felt a bit too static.
So you had the right tool, but it wasn't quite the right fit for the job.
Exactly. Right. What did you do?
We decided to adapt the framework. We added a new category to the SWOT. We called it disruptors to specifically account for those external forces that could shake things up.
I see.
This allowed us to more accurately assess the risks and opportunities associated with these emerging technologies and adjust our product strategy accordingly.
So you basically hacked the SWOT analysis to make it work for your specific situation.
Yeah.
That's a perfect example of how frameworks can be powerful tools without being restrictive.
Exactly. The key is understanding the underlying principles of the framework.
Right.
And being willing to adapt them to fit the unique context of the problem you're trying to solve. Just like with any tool, the more you practice using frameworks, the more comfortable and skilled you become at adapting them to different situations.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
It takes the pressure off feeling like we need to find the perfect framework.
Right.
Instead, it's about finding one that's a good starting point and then being willing to tweak it as needed.
Exactly.
So it's less about rigid rules and more about adaptable guidelines.
For sure. And remember, the goal is to enhance our thinking, not replace it. Frameworks are meant to guide us, provide structure, and help us avoid common pitfalls.
Gotcha.
But ultimately, it's up to us to apply our own creativity, critical thinking, and unique perspectives to the problem at hand.
Okay.
We need to find that sweet spot between structure and flexibility.
So frameworks are like having guardrails on a winding road. They keep you from going off the cliff, but they don't dictate every twist and turn along the way. You still have the freedom to steer and enjoy the ride.
I like that.
I think we've done a pretty thorough job unpacking this current thinking versus framework thinking concept.
I think so.
What are the key takeaways you want our listener to walk away with today?
Well, first and foremost, I think it's important to remember that we all use both current thinking and framework thinking to varying degrees. It's not about choosing one over the other, but rather recognizing the strengths and limitations of each approach.
Gotcha.
There are times when going with your gut is absolutely the right call, and there are times when a more structured approach is essential. The key is developing the awareness to know when to apply which mode of thinking.
That makes total sense.
Yeah.
It's like having different tools in our mental toolbox.
Exactly.
We need to know which one to grab depending on the task at hand.
Right. And the second takeaway is that frameworks are incredibly powerful tools for learning and problem solving. They provide structure, guidance, and a way to leverage existing knowledge and best practices.
Okay.
But as we've discussed, they need to be used thoughtfully and adapted to fit the specific context of the challenge we're facing.
Right. It's about finding that balance between structure and flexibility.
Precisely.
We don't want to become slaves to the framework, but rather use it as a springboard for our own creativity and insights.
That's it.
Okay.
And that leads to the third and perhaps most important takeaway.
Okay.
Frameworks are meant to enhance our thinking, not replace it.
Gotcha.
They're tools to help us think more clearly, make more informed decisions, and ultimately achieve greater success in whatever we set our minds to.
So it's not about outsourcing our thinking to some external system.
Exactly.
It's about taking ownership of our thought processes and using frameworks to empower ourselves to think more strategically and effectively.
That's it. Exactly.
Okay.
Now, thinking back to the Tool Thinker article you sent, I'm curious, what resonated most with you? Was there anything that particularly stood out?
You know, what really struck me was the idea that frameworks can actually boost our creativity. I always thought of them as being quite rigid and limiting. But the way you've explained it, it's more about providing a solid foundation on which we can then build something truly innovative.
That's a great observation.
Yeah.
And it speaks to the importance of understanding the underlying principles of a framework.
Okay.
Rather than just blindly following a set of rules. When we understand the why behind the framework, we can then adapt it and make it our own. It's like learning the rules of a game. So you can then bend or break them strategically to achieve a desired outcome.
Love that analogy.
Yeah.
It makes framework seem so much more dynamic and less intimidating.
Yeah.
Okay.
And speaking of not being intimidated, the final thought I'd like to leave our listener with is this.
Okay.
What's one area in your life where adopting a more framework-driven approach could be beneficial?
Is it a work project that's feeling overwhelming? A personal goal you're struggling to achieve?
Could be.
Or maybe a decision you're facing that has you feeling stuck?
Yeah.
I think we often shy away from frameworks because they seem complicated or academic. But as we've learned today, they can be incredibly practical and even empowering.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And remember, you don't have to go it alone.
Right.
The Tool Thinker website that you shared is a fantastic resource.
Okay.
They have a whole library of frameworks to explore with clear explanations and examples of how to apply them in different situations.
It's like having a personal coach for your thinking process.
That's a good way to put it.
So I definitely encourage our listener to check out toolthinker.com.
Yeah.
And see which frameworks resonate with them.
Right.
And remember, it's all about experimentation.
Mm-hmm.
Try out different approaches and see what works best for you.
Right.
There's no one-size-fits-all solution when it comes to thinking.
That's the beauty of it.
Right.
The more we understand about how our minds work,
the more effectively we can harness that power to achieve our goals and navigate the complexities of life.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
I try.
So to our listener,
yeah,
keep those brains buzzing, those frameworks firing, and always stay curious about the world around you.
Right.
Until next time, happy deep diving.
Always a pleasure diving deep with you.